It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
One just has to pick up a magazine or turn on a television to see that as women, we are bombarded daily with media images of physical perfection, female physical perfection, setting up the most unrealistic of expectations as to how we should look. No wonder female body confidence is falling, while incidents of eating disorders are on the rise. What's most alarming is the way this affects young girls. A reduced sense of self-worth can create anxiety, stress, even depression, causing relationship issues while potentially impairing academic and job performance. In direct contrast, Confidence in Bloom is designed to reinforce the truth and reassure every woman who has ever felt inadequate, unworthy, or tossed aside because of how she looks, that no matter her age, shape, or background, you matter, you are enough now. I, Tina Spolatini, a woman of substance, insist women deserve to be happy, confident, successful, and totally in love with themselves in their own bodies, just the way they are. Through an ongoing series of intriguing conversations with women from all walks of life, who are all extraordinary in their own right, we will embark upon a journey of ultimate self-acceptance and empowerment. Together, we'll share stories, laugh, learn, maybe even shed a few tears, when it becomes clear just how far many have come to realize how wonderful life is when you stand in your own power, feeling fantastic in your own skin. Today, Lisa Condon is my guest. Lisa Condon is a lover of life, adventurer of spirits, and cultivator of collaboration. As a business coach and life strategist, she thrives on helping businesses find their heart and people discover their passion through value and gratitude-based conversations. Lisa is an award-winning international speaker and author. She is professionally trained as a Six Sigma Black Belt and Scrum Master, and integrates tried and true processes into all the work she does. Diving into life head first, you can find Lisa with her husband, Nate, traveling the world or sitting by a fire watching the stars. Welcome, Lisa. How are you?
I'm doing great, Tina. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. So you get to travel the world.
I do.
That's great. And do you travel as like with work, or do you travel just to enjoy the world?
That's a great question. I like to say that I got bit with the travel bug when I was very little because my parents really enjoyed traveling and my grandparents enjoyed traveling. So I feel like it's in my blood. But at the same time, as I've gotten older and in business, I also get to travel with business, so it's a nice little perk when that happens. But I'm an explorer and an adventurer by nature, so it's exciting. I find it exciting. There's still a lot of places I haven't been, but I'll get there. I will get to all the places. So yeah.
I love that. And I don't know how, I've traveled a little bit. I wouldn't say I've been kind of through the world, like around the world. I've been to all the continents,
Nice.
but I haven't seen every country. But I've noticed, we went to Italy this last summer, and I really we've got to see a lot of the little cities and the little towns, right? Which normally we only see a few on our trips when we go, right? This year we saw lots, and I loved it so much. I was like, I can't believe this is the same Italy that everybody is always talking about, right? Yeah, we did Florence, we did Venice. I've done the big cities, and I think it's beautiful. Who wouldn't want to see them? But when you get into the little towns, where the people really are living, that's where the beauty is, right? Do you find that? Have you done that kind of traveling as well?
Definitely. And I agree with you. I feel like the magic with other countries is their culture. And where do you find the culture is in those smaller towns? Because just like in the US, right? If there are towns where people don't leave, they were born and raised there, their parents were, and it's generation after generation. That's how culture is created. And so in Italy, funny enough, my husband and I did the same thing. We did some of the bigger cities, but we went to this small little town that was in Tuscany, and we ended up meeting the countess who lived in the castle. Like we stayed in her castle. It was unbelievable. But the entire town was built around this and it was tiny. So we met the butcher. We met, I feel like the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. There's a reason these nursery rhymes exist because it is how not only family, but also friends that feel like family and community is really cultivated. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. The lifestyle, and now I can only compare to Italy because I haven't really been really around Europe that much other than the big cities. But in Italy, like their culture is just, it's around their family, right? But their lifestyle is so different from ours, right? I mean, they have to go out every day to buy their food. They don't buy food like we do to fill the freezer and have a full fridge, right? Like they have just enough for the day. That scares me to some point. I always think like if there's a disaster, like when COVID hit, then what? Right? Like if you don't bake your own bread or you don't cook grow your own food, you're kind of looped.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that's also where community comes in because if you don't have something, more than likely your neighbor does, or, somebody in the village does. And, we went to the Dominican Republic back in January and we go there quite a bit. And we go to Puerto Plata, which is the Atlantic side, it's more north. And the culture of the Dominican people, when you get outside of the resort areas, it really is again family oriented. And we saw they drive a lot of scooters up in Puerto Plata area, and they might put all of their family on a scooter. We saw, I think it was 6 people, 7 people on one little scooter, but it's because they all needed to get to wherever they were
Be
going.
somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, but they also share in terms of what it is that they need, and whether it's food or water or um, transportation. They learn how to share and learn how to just be together. But again, I think that starts with the culture. And I don't know about you, what you have seen, but I also feel like those countries that may not have as much affluency as perhaps the US or other countries, they tend to lean even more into their culture and community because the value system around that is what's important to them. And it's really beautiful to see that.
I have to agree with you. Yeah, I have to agree. And I think that that's where North America is lacking, in all honesty, like, because I mean, we're not third world countries, right? We live in a first world over here, and we have what we need. We have more than what we need. And that's, I believe too, that is the difference for sure. 100%, right? Yeah. And we like, when we go to Italy and when we go to Mexico and all those, poor countries, I mean, I don't go there to show them that, look, I get to travel. I go there because I want to share in that. I want to, I want to see, I feel like I'm a part of that when I'm there, right? The first few times I actually felt guilty because I thought, my God, like, what do they think of me? Here I'm traveling, and they're serving me. Are they looking at me like, oh, who does this queen think she is? Like, I felt guilty, right? Because I'm like, they don't deserve to be treated this way, right? And then after slowly, I started to feel a little bit more comfortable with the idea of, I get to enjoy what I have, right? I get to be grateful for what I have. I'm not there to make them feel bad. I'm there to show them that there's more to life than just what you do every single day, right?
Absolutely. And you're sharing your economy too, which, a lot of these different countries rely on tourism, and that's how money is brought into their countries. And so, when you think of it that way, and again, it goes back to kindness and just human being to human being. There's always an opportunity to smile. There's always an opportunity to connect, even beyond language barriers, right? And so it's how you show up, and it's how you embrace the connection that you end up having, whether it's with your taxi driver or a concierge at a hotel, or like you said, servers, in the hospitality arena. And that, to me, that's worldly, right? That's the kindness is worldly, gratitude is worldly.
Absolutely.
It's not a diversity thing, right? It's really about being a human.
Right. I feel like the world needs a lesson in that. What do you think, Lisa? Like, I think there is so much racism, and even in my own house, sometimes I hear comments. I'm like, where was that coming from? Right? Like,
Yeah.
I think I taught my kids better, right? Because I look at people as people. I don't look at them as their color or their race. Right.
Mhm.
And so sometimes I know that my kids are joking because they have hearts of gold. I know that, right? And yet they make these comments, right? And I'm thinking, I did something wrong here. I failed you people because you are not doing, the good deed. I know that if
Yeah.
they leave the house, they are not going to be treating people with disrespect. I know that, and I believe that in my heart. But there's these little jokes. And I mean, if you're on Instagram or TikTok, you see it all the time. And I think, why are we doing this? Why are we advertising? Right? We should be, doing the opposite. We should be, I don't really know if picketing is the right, thing to do, but, we should be defending. We should be defending the weak, defending the people that need to be defended.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, I think there's opportunity to learn and grow through all of that. And, when you think about diversity, equity, inclusion, and all of the DEI work, there, to your point, I think it envelops so much. And, and there's the optics piece of it, which is, whether it's gender, color, there's that piece of it. But diversity goes so far beyond that and so much deeper than that. I'm mostly deaf in one ear, and so I have an invisible disability. And so that falls under the diversity scale, right? But there's also, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, there's actually a diversity wheel. And it's really, really interesting because it actually talks to all of the things that fall under diversity. So, including religion or, again, economics. And again, there's all kinds, but not everybody needs to um, be protected at the same. That's coming out wrong. Sometimes voices need to be louder for a certain sect of DE&I work, and because there's, they don't have a voice, or there's legislation, whatever it might be, there's transgressions happening. And so, again, going back to human kindness, how do we all support in the right ways that make sense so that we are all, again, humanized, right? We're all human and we're all getting the same benefits, and we all have the same opportunities to do the same things. And now, does everybody take advantage of opportunities? No, but to me, that's so far removed from the DEI work. I think that's, again, about having choice and being able to do what it is we have opportunity to do. But it's when you start taking away those opportunities, where I think we as humans who love one another, we have a responsibility there.
Oh, absolutely. I do agree. And I think politically, we are, the speech that you just gave me, that mini tiny speech that you just gave me, we need to be listening, right? As humans, we need to be listening. There's so much going on politically right now that I almost feel like we should have one of those, like let's invite, who would you invite to dinner tonight? If you could, if you knew they would come, just so they would hear you, who would you invite? Because I mean, I'm not going to say names and I don't want to go there, right?
Mhm.
But I have a list of people myself that I would love to have at my dinner table, just so we can actually really discuss what me, the commoner, wishes the world had, right?
Yeah, I've never thought about that. And I think that's a really great question. And I have to tell you, for me, it would actually start with where I really feel I could make change, which means that it would start with local, right? And again, to me, this is not about politics. It's about, where can you be the change that you want to see in the world, right? And I think it starts with conversations with your family and your friends and being able to be in a safe and open space. And then how do you kind of start that ripple effect? And then, maybe they start having conversations. And here's the other thing. We don't always have to agree on everything. That's what makes, I think, our world so beautiful, is that we all have different perspectives and we all have a different lens because of our different experiences that we've had in life. And that's what makes it wonderful. And at the same time, to have the opportunity to have open, honest conversations in a safe space, that's equally as important. And I'm watching a lot of people over the years, it's not just now. I think I've seen it probably over the past 8 to 10 years, where those people aren't remembering how to have conversations that result in action, and they come out of love. And if you believe that people have good intentions, and if you can start there, then maybe the words that we would use with one another or the conversations that we have might gain momentum because it's done through kindness. And I think when you do things through kindness, again, I think it penetrates differently. And because you become less defensive, and then you can actually maybe work through crucial conversations, right? I don't know if you've ever read that book, but there's conflict all the time. So how do you navigate through that? And it's very complex. It's very complex because feelings and humans are complex. So yeah.
Yeah. And then of course there's always those, I don't like talking feelings, right? I mean,
Sure.
like, right. There's a lot of people in the world, not just men, right? I was going to say
sure.
Most men,
Yeah.
right? But I think there's a lot of women too that don't want to talk about feelings, because
Mhm.
feelings brings up memories, and then memories bring up, all the trauma and all the stuff that we've been holding on to for all our lives. Right. So yeah, I agree. And kindness seems to put that aside, right? It's like, you know what? I don't really care what your story is. I just want to be nice to you. Right. I want you to be heard. I want to hear you, and I want you to hear me.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I love that. So you're a life coach.
I am.
What kind of clients are you helping in life, and to what degree of a life coach are you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so actually, I do life coaching and I do business coaching as well. And the reason why I do both is I think as a human being, we need somebody, all of us do, to really help us with all aspects of our life. And so many of us have businesses or we work somewhere, and we have our personal lives, but we're still the same person. So the work that I do with individuals, it's really about activating them to be, I would say, the best version of themselves in that moment, and then watching them evolve. Oh, it's my favorite thing. But also to help them figure out what their purpose is. So typically, the individuals that I work with are those that are in some type of transition. So whether it's moving from one business to another, or maybe they're aging into a different role, stepping into C-suite, or I just had a client where, actually I have quite a few of these, they're leaving what has been their conventional job and moving into starting their own business, which I love doing that. Or I have a client that's worked with me now for almost 10 years, and I watched her through industry change, and now she's growing her own team, and now she has a team of 20 people. And so watching that growth, and I love to bring that sparkle to them and really help them define what their values are and then build from that foundational space.
I love that. Yeah. There's a joy in being that guide, right?
Yes.
That person that helps and takes their hand and walks them through that. I love that. And I can see your face. So I can see, like, your face lights up when you say that. And I get it. Like, I totally understand it as a life coach myself. I really get that. And I've come to realize that no matter where you are in life, you can't know everything. Right. But if you have someone beside you that is going to be on your side, to support you, to get you through it, that isn't your family, right? It is like so beneficial and so heartwarming, right? To know that you're going to get the information that you need that is non-judgmental and non-biased, right? Yeah, okay, fine. Sometimes you have to pay for it. You know, that's the downside, but you're getting something out of it that is worth so much more, right? There's so much value in having that person beside you, walking you through life.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you've had a client for over 10 years. So you've been doing this a long time.
17 years. Yeah,
Wow.
I have been doing it a long time. And I've seen a lot, right? And I've seen where people get stuck, and usually that comes from history of, whatever's happened in their life. And so then there's opportunity to kind of peel back those layers and really help them to navigate through all of that. And I mean, quite frankly, and you know this being a life coach, sometimes it almost feels like you step into therapy at times, for people. And at the end of the day, it's really just helping them navigate where their own blockages are or where their own limiting beliefs are. And, again, we have the opportunity to be over here looking in and helping them to see what we see and helping them with the blueprint of their journey. And that can pivot at any given time, depending on what opportunities come up for them. But I love it. I absolutely love what I do. And it's the joy of when somebody, I would say, outgrows me or doesn't need me anymore. To me, that's wonderful. And it's not that I don't want them as a client. It's more of, we have now taken them to where I can take them, and now they're stepping into that next space. And I think there's always a coach for somebody. And I think everybody should have a coach. I really do. And there's, I think, a coach for every season for people's lives too.
Oh, I agree. And like you said, I mean, there's business coaches, there's life coaches, there's so many different kinds of coaches. And at the end of the day, they're there for you, right? They're there for you to walk you through whatever, situation you're in, good and bad, right? I mean, sometimes good things happen and we're like, now what? What do I do? I don't know. Like, this is so awesome, right? Which brings me to the whole gratitude conversation. So you and I have met, we met because I bought a gratitude journal from you.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering, how do you bring your gratitude? I'm going to call it gratitude coaching because I don't know really what you do with it, but how do you bring that into the life of your clients?
That's a great question. There's a couple of different ways that I do that. So number one, it's about the conversations that we have and stepping back into that gratitude space, because when you are actively practicing gratitude, you say things to yourself differently, you choose different words, and for lack of better terms, we know about optimism, pessimism, and realism. And gratitude usually falls into more of that optimistic bucket, but it's beyond that. It's more about the abundant lifestyle and navigating through all of the experiences of life with an open and learning mindset. And so that's the types of conversations I have with my clients. Along with that, I have a 9 steps of gratitude program as well that I walk people through without it being like, people don't sign up for that program, but when you work with me, we navigate through that. And so we start, the number one step is about grounding. And so you have to ground yourself in where you are at in this very moment, because you have to have a starting point. And when you make a conscious choice to say, I'm going to hire a coach because I know that I need something. Oftentimes what you think you need and what you really need are 2 very different things. So we do a lot of grounding work in where you're at right now in your life. And that can include business, personal, or really anything else that's going on. And then we take those steps to navigate. And that can take a long time. It can take a short time. That really just kind of depends on who you are, where you're at in your life, what again, where you might be stuck or what those barriers are, and then how we navigate through those. And then about halfway through the 9 steps, there's a transformation that starts to happen, and it's usually internal. And that's where, again, you start hearing different language. You start hearing different questions. The conversation just shifts for people, including who they start to attract as their own clients, or who's showing up for them, or who's, I would say, challenging them, because people inherently don't like change. And so when they see somebody close to them start to change, even if it's for the betterment of themselves and for their highest and greatest good, people still don't like it. And so then you've got to make some decisions about, okay, now you've seen how people react, or you've seen maybe the job that you're in isn't the right job. What are you going to do? And if you decide to stay, then you know what those consequences are, or you know what's going to be happening, you know the struggles that are going to be happening, but you're going to go into it eyes wide open. Doesn't mean it's the wrong decision. It just means it might be a more challenging path, or you could choose something different. And so the 9th step is about emerging, and it's emerging into, again, this next version of yourself. And it could be version 2.0, it could be version 200.0. It just, I like to think that we all have opportunities to grow and emerge and evolve every day, every day. And so, and then I have my own gratitude practice that I do every day, so I can stay in that space. And, I like to say that I'm a gratitude practitioner because it's changed my life. And so I want to be able to help others experience that.
So when you say gratitude practice, maybe explain that a little bit more. I'm just wondering, like, is it just, I feel like, writing down what I'm grateful for is almost not enough, right? And I mean, you'll be able to explain that a little bit better, but I have the 5-minute journal, or whatever it's called, or 3 things you're grateful for in the morning and then at night. And I did it for a few weeks when I got the book, and I was like, I don't know, it just didn't feel real to me. Yes, I am grateful for my family and for the house that I live in, and for, all the little things that make life work. But there's more to life than being grateful for that. Am I right? Or am I like, I mean, I know there's no right or wrong. I can't tell you what to be grateful for. You have to know it in your own heart. But maybe walk us through, like, what you would consider the rights and wrongs of gratitude.
So the first thing is, I don't believe there are any wrongs of gratitude. And I say that because I think everybody's on their own gratitude journey of where they're at. And even myself, the way that I started practicing gratitude was I saw a friend of mine, post on Facebook 3 things they were grateful for. And I went, "Ooh, that's interesting. I think I'll start doing that." And I asked her if she was okay with it, and I started doing it. And when I started doing it, I would post it on Facebook, and kind of like you, it was very topical at the time. And I wouldn't do it every day. But what started happening for me is the days that I didn't do it, I felt a little bit differently. And I started to notice that my days would just be off for some reason, didn't really know why. And then I started connecting the dots, and I went, isn't that interesting? And as I would run into people that maybe I hadn't seen in person for a period of time, but we were friends on Facebook, that became the topic of conversation rather than, "Hey, what's the weather been like?" or whatever it might be. The conversation turned to, "Oh my gosh, I read your gratefuls every day." And it's kind of inspired me to be thinking differently about what's good in my life right now. So that's how it started off for me. And I think when people kind of start this journey, we stumble, just like when you're born and you start to crawl and then you walk. It's the same type of thing. It's really flexing a muscle and building that up. So I think also, if you think of gratitude as a verb, and just that again changes things. So there's something about being grateful, and then there's acting grateful. And I don't know that we talk about those differences that much, because I think oftentimes, "Oh, I'm so grateful for my family. I'm grateful for the warmth." And that's wonderful. Now, how do you act on that? What are you doing and taking from that to then live that and breathe that in your actions? So I'll give you an example. Again, I still post those 3 gratefuls every day on Facebook to this day, and it's been many, many,
I
many
see them.
years.
Yes.
And I do it every day. And that's part of, I have an entire morning practice that I do, and that's part of it. But one of my gratefuls years ago was I was grateful for my red shoes. And that was, and again, I post them for me. I do not post them so that I get reactions and likes and all of that. I could care less. I do it to hold myself accountable to remain in that grateful space. So I'm starting my day that way in that mindset. And, people had all kinds of comments to say about the red shoes. And my truth for those red shoes was that I was wearing them because I was going to be speaking on stage to a group of people whom I didn't know many of them. I knew some of them, but it was about sharing gratitude. And for me, it was giving me that power and that confidence during a day where maybe I didn't have as much of it. And so for me, it was, channeling Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz and, that feminine power and just bringing that all in. And I was so grateful that I had something that could help me tap into that feeling for myself. That's what it meant for me. Now, what it evoked in other people was a whole litany of things, which was wonderful to see. But it wasn't about, like, for me, it was about my journey, but what they got from it was around what they saw and what they felt and what it really evoked in them. And that's where I think the magic of practicing gratitude comes in. It starts different conversations. It helps people see the world a little bit differently. And even if you aren't having the conversation, but you are putting it out there in your actions, right? We all have time, talent, and treasure that we can give to our friends, family, community, world. How are you doing that? How are you living into that? And how are you showing up? And when you show up in a grateful space, you can feel it, you can see it, and you start attracting people differently, and you start attracting different clients, you start attracting different opportunities. And think about it, Tina, if everybody lived in the mindset and the action space of gratitude, how would our world look differently? How would our communities look differently?
Oh my gosh. Like, honestly, just the little person that I am in the world, I already can see it different, right? If everybody walked into a space having gratitude for being there, right? We've all been to parties or, events where people are there. They're not there for themselves. They're not there for, to share in the excitement. They're there because they owe them, like they were owed, right? They're entitled to be there, right?
Yeah.
And so you feel that, right? When you said that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally get that, right? If you can just show up and be grateful for being invited or being included, that's enough, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah, that I love that. I love how you said that because that is so true, right? So really what you're saying is if we can just be grateful for all the little things, all the big things are, I mean, they're still to be grateful for, but the big things start coming at us in a different view, in a different sparkle, right? Because we have that gratefulness for the small things in life.
Absolutely. And a friend of mine, I have a gratitude book out, and he was an author in the book. And Greg likes to say things happen for him, and rather than to him. And it was somebody in his life that said that to him. And when he said that to me, I was like, that's brilliant, because it's very, very true. And when you shift that mindset of, okay, this is happening, it might not feel good in that moment, but there is purpose for it. And I think it goes beyond things happen for a reason. It's really about that law of attraction. And then what is the learning experience that you're obtaining from that? Or was it somebody that you were supposed to meet? Or were you supposed to be in that space because you learned something new? And really paying attention of being in that moment and experiencing that moment for what it is, and then taking the learnings from that into the next moment, and then into the next moment. And
right.
It just creates just a different way of being.
Yeah, I totally get that. I don't know how to to really say what I'm feeling right now, because I feel like it's like the more grateful I am, the more I will have to be grateful for.
Mhm.
Right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
they say the universe will provide. Well, I'm thinking, so my universe, of course, is God. But, the more I show gratitude for what he's given to me, the more he's going to provide to me. Right. And I
Absolutely.
feel like that's what this is all about. Right. Like, I feel like, and it has to be real gratitude. It's not like, oh, thank God for that. No, there's more to it than, thanking him, or, I know thanking him is really inappropriate, right? But being, you know, really enjoying and embodying every single thing that he has provided to you, right? Did
Yeah.
I say that right? I
And
mean, I'm a little bit
no,
stumbling over.
no, you're totally right. And where I was thinking, and I'm sure you were watching my face, because what I'm also thinking is not every day is easy. And I think that's just such an incredible thing to remember for ourselves and giving ourselves grace. You talked about you were doing your three gratefuls, and then after a period of time, it stopped because it just, it wasn't connecting with you in the way that it was happening. And that's why I go back to practicing gratitude is different for everybody and how they do it. I only do mine in the morning, and I only do three things that I am grateful for. And I spend time in that specifically for that piece of my practice. There's other pieces of it that I engage in throughout the day, and that's usually through conversations, etc. But if doing it at night works for you because you're reflecting back on your day, that's great. And yet that's also being very reactive. So, as you're doing and as you start to evolve in the gratitude space, that proactiveness and it being beyond what you are doing, that's when things start to again shift. And you think about tectonic plates, right? They just start to shift a little bit. Um, and and then how do you expand upon that? And then the things that you are grateful for start to change. But that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be days where you're like, oh my gosh, it's difficult. It's difficult for me to figure out anything that I'm grateful for. And you know what? That's when you need to spend a little more time sitting in the now and really diving into your feels and getting in there to say, it's real. I've got to go beyond the norm. I've got to go beyond the family and friends piece of it, and I've got to dig deeper. And maybe it was a learning opportunity that you had from a bad experience. Or, I mean, again, like today, the conversation that we had even before we started this conversation, so grateful for that because an opportunity to talk about things that are real that are going on in this world and seeing things differently and feeling it differently, being able to contemplate and ruminate on that together was lovely. And so I'm so grateful that we had that safe opportunity to have that conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the thing is, I mean, we all interpret what's going on in the world differently, right?
Hmm.
Because it affects us all differently, right?
Right.
And so sometimes, and we saw this with COVID, right? Some people were totally devastated, but some people shined, right?
Hmm.
Like some people, they were like, you'd look at them and go, oh my God, like, how are you doing this? Right?
Hmm.
Like they drove their business, their income started coming in like exponentially and all the things. And yet some people were like losing their homes, right? Like it's, like we can't, it can't be, it's not the same for everyone. And so we need to recognize that, number one, right? And we also need to um I don't know what the word is, but we need to respect, right, what your feelings and what your experience was and how you felt about it,
Hmm.
right? And that's all part of this gratitude, right?
Hmm.
Like, I'm so grateful for you that you were able to see what happened, and you were able to see it, like the outside of it and the end of the tunnel, right? Whereas, in other ways you're like, okay, well, there's something you still have to learn from that,
Right.
right? And that's kind of where you were going with your part of the conversation there. Oh, I really like this. This is so great because, now I want to ask you, and you don't have to, but if you're willing, would you like to share your morning practice with us? I mean, I'm a self-love coach. And so the whole like self-love, self-care routine is super
Hmm.
important to me. So I'd love for you to share that if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. So the first thing that I do when I wake up in the morning, even before I open my eyes, and I just started doing this relatively recently, given to me by a coach, where it's checking in with all of my senses. So, move, and you see me doing it, nobody else can, but, rubbing my fingers together, like, what am I feeling? What am I smelling? What am I hearing? And then opening my eyes, what am I seeing? So just checking in with all of those senses. And again, that's just a nice little grounding exercise before I even get out of bed. Um, and then, the rest of that, after I do some of the other things like, feed my dog, that type of thing, then I sit down and I write down the 3 things that I'm grateful for and, sit in those moments. And that could be 30 seconds, it could be 3 minutes, it could be 5 minutes. Usually it's no longer than that. Just again, because for me, it's what comes to me. I don't overthink it. And so that's why sometimes they're deep and sometimes they're not, and that's okay. I also have affirmation cards that I pull every single day. And I do a little bit of writing around that. I do not consider myself a journaler. When I say a little bit of writing, it might be a couple of sentences based on what I've read in that moment. And actually, one of the things that I've added is it's this book called A Year of Self-Care. And this book, so every day there's just a little tiny read. It might be a sentence or a paragraph. And I read that, and that again, along with the affirmation cards that I pull, it's what comes to me. And so again, I write a couple of sentences about that. Then I also give myself a theme for the day or a word for the day. So like today, and I put, funny enough, in my planner under today's goal is where I put that, but it's slowly rise. And so today I have a pretty abundant schedule. And so I want to make sure though that I'm showing up and I'm rising up in the right ways for everybody that I'm speaking with, but I can do it in a very slow way. So that's really what I do. And then for myself, I really just spend quiet time with myself before my day really gets kicked off. So I like to give myself a good 45 minutes to an hour in the morning of just being able to do the gratitude pieces that I talked about, and then be with myself, and loving on myself, which could mean having coffee or again, taking my dog for a walk or reading something that I feel is filling my cup. Because if I don't fill my cup on a daily basis, I cannot fill other people's.
Yeah, and we need to share that, right? We need to share
Yeah.
that with the world because that is so important and it's been missed by so many. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for adding that in. I love that. I really love that. And so that's kind of where I mean you're setting your day off, right? With a good sparkle and a good, I don't know, how can you step into your day not feeling like happy, right? When you're doing all this, because there's so much to be said about, like you pull out an affirmation card and something is going to come to your mind, whether it's, that's not going to happen for me today, or yeah, like that happened to me yesterday and it happened to me the day before, and look, it seems to be like a trend with me, right? Like you're going to start to see things like that, right? And that, I mean, that alone will start, giving you a bit of a boost in your energy and your life, right? Inspiration.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Absolutely. And I write them down too. So I have 2 card decks that I pull from every day that I've been doing for years. And I write it down every day. So I have this little 5-year, like 1 line a day journal. And, I know each day of what comes up and what I pull. And I take notice of when I'm seeing patterns like that. If I'm seeing something come up, what that tells me is, and what I've learned about myself, um, is that if I'm seeing something come up a lot, it means I'm missing something. What am I not paying attention to that I need to be paying attention to? And I take that very, very seriously because I think that we can't know everything. And so when we get nudges, you got to pay attention to them. But I think the only way to feel those nudges is to pay attention and is to, again, be in the now versus looking backwards or looking ahead. You know, it's about being in this space right now.
Right
And
now.
yeah, and just
Yeah.
being
So
presented
then do
with that
you
opportunity.
read your journal back to yourself? Like, you sort of like,
Mhm.
okay, so you write today's and then you look at yesterday's again, or you look, oh, did
I
I
don't
write that
necessarily
2 days?
look at yesterday's. I just, again, you just start to know, like when you're like, huh,
Right.
I know I felt this come up, so I might look back. At the end of the year, I absolutely take a look at how often did certain things come up for me. Because I can tell you, again, this is the second journal, and the first one was 5 years. This is year 6 of pulling these cards. And I can tell you in each one of these decks of my cards, um, there are many I have never pulled, many,
Wow.
which I think
I
is so
love that.
interesting. Yeah,
I always
yeah.
find that, when someone says pick a card, any
Mhm,
card, right?
mhm.
I always, my mom didn't believe in, like, it's meant for you, right? But now over time that I've been doing this more and more with people, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so weird how every time I pick a card, it's relatable to what's going on in my life today. Like
Mhm,
somehow, some way, right? And I think,
mhm.
how is that possible? Right? How is it possible? I still don't get it, but I see it, right? I see it, so I can't not believe it, right? And
Mhm.
so I believe what you're saying, how, yeah, you can pick the same 50 cards over the year, and there might be 5 or 6 or 12 that you will never see.
Right, absolutely,
Yeah.
which is amazing, which is absolutely amazing. Or when you do see one new, it's like, "Ooh, I never saw this one
Yeah.
before, like, let's explore this." And
Yeah.
that's also what I love, and it gives you one of the cards literally, it's just a word, right? Like, it's just a word on a little piece of paper, but I also get to define
Wow.
it for myself, right? This is expansiveness for our conversation. I love that. Ooh, that just gave me chills. But expansiveness,
Wow.
but you get to define what that means for you because again, we all have different experiences. We all have different lenses. We're all in a different place in this very moment.
Right.
So what does that mean for you right now? And so that's how I look at it. And again, we get to then dig in for ourselves and how it applies to us.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I wasn't really sure, how much we could talk about on gratitude, but I mean, we filled up our space here, and my heart feels so warm right now, which is really great. Is there
Oh.
anything else that you would like to add about gratitude or life coaching or anything that we've talked about that we missed that you might want our listeners to hear?
I don't know that it's that we've missed it. I just want to reiterate it. Start somewhere. Like, just start somewhere because the change and the transformation will occur if you start somewhere and you're consistent with your practice. And like you said, your heart is warm right now, and that's what can happen for you at any given time, right? And when you start practicing consistently, you're going to be in that consistent space of feeling good. And don't we all need to feel good?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Tina.
Confidence in Bloom is a celebration of self love, a confirmation, excuse me, that even though you may not look like a screen star or a supermodel, they don't even look like that. You are an amazing, desirable, brilliant, gorgeous, talented woman. We offer unconditional love to our partners, our children, our extended family, even our pets. It's high time we got out of our own way and learned to unconditionally love ourselves. In Full Bloom Styling and Coaching offers an online program combined with one-on-one coaching in confidence building, personal branding, and creating your signature fashion look. Chic definitely does come in every shape. So if you want something to believe in, start with yourself. If you'd like to be a guest here on Confidence in Bloom, contact me through Instagram at infobloomstyling, by email tina@infobloomstyling.com, or through the Divas That Care website.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.